Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're taking a nostalgic ride through America's farming past, the top 5 classic tractors that powered small and mid-sized farms across the Midwest. These are the machines that helped feed a nation, simple, reliable, and built to last. So, grab your coffee, sit back, and let's relive some tractor history. Oliver 770. It's 1958. The Midwest was alive with the rhythm of work, corn rising tall, barns freshly painted, and the air thick with the scent of hay and gasoline. In Charles City, Iowa, the Oliver Corporation rolled out a new machine, strong and graceful in its meadow green and clover white paint. They called it the Oliver 770. It wasn't the biggest tractor on the lot. It didn't roar or boast. It simply did what farmers needed most. It worked, every day, without complaint. Built in an age when steel meant something, the 770 was honest machinery for honest hands. Its 6-cylinder engine offered around 55 horsepower, enough to pull a plow through thick black soil or haul a full wagon up a gravel road. The 5-speed transmission shifted smooth, the power steering gentle and light. Weighing just over 5,000 pounds, it held to the earth with perfect balance, heavy enough for power, light enough for precision. Farmers in Ohio and Wisconsin remember the sound, that low, steady chug, carrying across the fields like a heartbeat. You could tell the time of day by it. Dawn was when the 770 first coughed to life, and dusk was when it hummed quietly back to the barn, warm and tired, its head ticking softly as the metal cooled. The cab was open, the seat high. From up there, a man could see his whole farm, the fence lines, the tree rows, the promise of another season. The air smelled of diesel and dust. The steering wheel was solid, the gearshift worn smooth by calloused hands. You didn't just drive the 770, you worked with it, shoulder to shoulder, like an old friend. What made it beloved was its simplicity. Every nut, every bolt, every hose was made to be understood. No special tools. No shop manuals thicker than a Bible. Just wrenches, grease, and know-how. When something went wrong, and sometimes it did, you didn't curse it. You fixed it. You earned its respect, and it earned yours. Neighbors traded parts, swapped stories, shared advice. If your 770 needed a belt or a bearing, chances are someone down the road had one on a shelf, waiting. These machines didn't just build farms, they built communities. Even today, you'll find an Oliver 770 in a shed somewhere in the Heartland, paint faded but still running true. Some pull parade wagons, others cut hay for hobby farms, but all of them still carry that same steady rhythm, proof that good engineering never dies. In a world that's traded wrenches for laptops and craftsmanship for convenience, the 770 stands as a reminder, some things were made not to impress, but to endure. That steady heartbeat of the 770 still echoes across the fields. But before the bright Oliver green came to rule the rows, there was a small red helper that carried families through the hardest years, the faithful Farmall A. Farmall A. It's 1939. America was still shaking the dust of the Depression off its boots. The fields were lean, the barns were tired, and families counted every nickel like seed in a burlap sack. Out of Rock Island, Illinois, came a small miracle painted bright red, sturdy as hope itself. It was the Farmall A. For $600, a farmer could bring one home. It wasn't a giant, but it didn't need to be. It was built for the small family farm, the kind that fed America, 1 acre at a time. The Farmall A wasn't about power. It was about freedom. Its four-cylinder engine produced around 18 horsepower, modest, but reliable. Gasoline, simple mechanics, and easy maintenance made it a friend to every farmer who couldn't afford a fleet of machines or a hired mechanic. It started most mornings on the first pull, puffing a little blue smoke, like it was clearing its throat before getting to work. It had an offset seat and a slim, centered engine, a Cultivision design that let you see straight down the rows. You could steer and plant with precision, watch your furrows take shape, and feel the earth moving beneath you. In that seat, under a rising sun, you didn't just drive a tractor, you guided a living piece of your land. In the heart of Ohio, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania, you could hear it before you saw it, the putt-putt-putt of a Farmall A starting its day. It wasn't a roar, it was a promise. That sound meant there'd be crops in the ground, hay in the loft, and food on the table. The A was light on fuel but heavy on heart. It could plow, cultivate, mow, and haul everything a small farm needed. It didn't scare you with complexity. If something broke, you fixed it yourself. A wrench, a can of grease, and a little patience could bring it back to life. Every dent told a story, every repair meant survival. Through the war years, when parts were scarce and men were overseas, the Farmall A kept the home front running. Wives, sons, and daughters climbed into that red seat and learned the rhythm of the land. The A didn't care who was behind the wheel. It just kept working. Farmers loved it because it felt alive. It was small enough to maneuver through tight rows, strong enough to pull its weight, and light enough to leave the soil breathing. It didn't waste, not gas, not effort, not time. And when the work was done, its hum lingered in the evening air like the sound of gratitude. Even now, at county fairs and tractor shows, you'll see them, some polished bright, others wearing their rust proudly. Old farmers rest their hands on the hood, eyes far away, remembering the days when that little red engine carried their world on its back. The Farmall A didn't change farming with size or strength. It changed it with spirit. It made the dream of owning land and working it possible again. For families across the Midwest, it was more than metal, it was a partner, a teacher, and a quiet friend. That soft chugging sound still feels like home. But as the war years rolled on and America found its strength again, a new color began to spread across the fields, a bold, fiery orange that stood for determination and endurance. The Allis-Chalmers WC was coming. Allis-Chalmers WC. The 1940s. America was changing fast. The world was at war, and the Midwest carried the weight of feeding a nation. In the factories of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, under the glow of orange sparks and steel, a new kind of hero was born, the Allis-Chalmers WC. It wasn't fancy, and it didn't need to be. Painted bright Persian orange, it stood out against the dull brown earth, a beacon of hard work and quiet pride. While others talked of horsepower and profit, the WC spoke the farmer's language: reliability, simplicity, and endurance. Under its hood, a four-cylinder engine delivered around 30 horsepower, not the most powerful, but strong enough to plow, plant, and harvest without complaint. The clutch was hand-operated, the gears deliberate, and the sound unmistakable. You could hear it from a mile away, that steady pop-pop-pop, deep and confident, the rhythm of progress rolling over the hills. For many families, the WC was their first tractor. Before it, there were horses, strong, stubborn, and slow. Then one day, the dealer's truck came down the dusty road, and the family gathered by the fence to see it unloaded. The father wiped his hands on his overalls, climbed into the metal seat, and turned the key. The engine caught, coughed, and then settled into that perfect chug. From that day forward, the farm would never be the same. The WC was affordable, just about $1,000 brand new. It was light enough for small fields but tough enough to haul a heavy load of hay or pull a plow through thick soil. You didn't need a manual to fix it, just common sense and a good set of tools. The fuel system was simple, the belts accessible, and every part seemed designed by someone who'd actually worked a field before. During the war, when materials were scarce and labor short, Allis-Chalmers made sure farmers could still find what they needed. They built with purpose, not luxury. The WC became a symbol of that wartime perseverance, strong when times were hard, steady when everything else seemed uncertain. Ask any old farmer, and he'll tell you the WC had a sound that lived in your bones. That steady hum on a quiet afternoon, when the air smelled of diesel and warm dust, when birds wheeled above and the world felt whole. Some say it wasn't just the tractor working, it was the land itself breathing through it. In Minnesota and Iowa, the WC pulled more than implements, it pulled families through tough seasons. When storms hit or droughts lingered, it kept going. When parts wore thin, farmers patched them up and ran another year. Those orange machines didn't quit, because the people who drove them didn't quit either. Today, you'll still find them, maybe behind a barn, half covered in vines, maybe gleaming in the sunlight at a county fair. Some are restored, others left with their rust intact, a badge of honor from a lifetime of service. Turn the key, and you might still hear that same heartbeat, strong as ever. The Allis-Chalmers WC wasn't built for show. It was built for the long haul, for the smell of cut hay, the hum of summer fields, and the pride of a good day's work. That orange hum still sings the song of hard work well done. But as the seasons passed and the land called for something lighter, quieter, and just as reliable, another machine stepped into the story, a little green giant that carried the unmistakable tune of progress, the John Deere Model H. John Deere Model H. By the late 1930s, America was stirring with change. The worst of the Depression was passing, and the small farms of the Midwest were finding their strength again. In Waterloo, Iowa, a team of engineers at John Deere looked out across those fields and saw a need, not for a massive powerhouse, but for something smaller, lighter, and more personal. In 1939, they delivered exactly that. The John Deere Model H, the little green tractor that worked like a giant. It arrived just as farmers were rebuilding their confidence and their soil. The Model H was affordable, efficient, and simple enough that a single family could run it without help. It wasn't about luxury, it was about reliability. Deere built it for the kind of man who knew every acre by heart and every sunrise by smell. Beneath that green hood lived a two-cylinder engine, making about 14 horsepower. By modern standards, that's modest. But in those days, it was the perfect balance of power and thrift. Gasoline or kerosene, whichever the farmer could get, the H didn't complain. Its put-put-put exhaust note became the unofficial song of the Midwest, rolling across hills and valleys, echoing from one farm to the next. The Model H weighed just under 3,000 pounds, light enough to handle narrow rows of corn and beans without packing the soil. Deere's engineers gave it the new PowerTroll hydraulic system, one lever, one motion, total control. It made the hard work a little smoother, the long days a little easier. On a cool Wisconsin morning, you could hear it before you saw it. That deep, even rhythm, slow and patient. A farmer would step onto the drawbar, pull the flywheel, and the H would come to life, first a cough, then a steady hum. The smell of raw fuel would drift through the crisp air. That was the sound of another day beginning. The H didn't boast, but it never failed. It pulled cultivators, rakes, mowers, even threshers, whatever the farm demanded. It was light on fuel, easy on the soil, and gentle on the hands that guided it. The seat gave a clear view of the field ahead, the clutch responded like an old friend, and the whole machine moved as though it understood the land beneath it. For families who couldn't afford the bigger Deere A or B, the Model H was salvation. It gave them power they could own outright, no debts, no dependence. It made small farms competitive again, one furrow at a time. And even now, decades later, you can still find them tucked away in barns across Ohio and Minnesota, under tarps in Pennsylvania, or gleaming proudly in parades at county fairs. Some are restored, shining like new, others wear their faded paint and rust with dignity. Every one of them carries a lifetime of work in its bones. The John Deere Model H didn't just help feed a nation, it defined an era. Its voice became the hum of progress, soft but unyielding, steady as the horizon itself. A Deere never really stops working, it just rests between harvests. But as the 1940s turned into the 1950s and a new wave of optimism swept across America, another tractor came to symbolize the spirit of the common man, simple, gray, and unshakably strong. It was the people's tractor, the one that brought power to every home and field, the Ford 8N. Ford 8N. When the Ford 8N first rolled out of Dearborn, Michigan in 1939, America was stepping into a new age. Factories were roaring, roads were expanding, and even in the quiet corners of the Midwest, change was coming fast. But while the world looked ahead, farmers still needed something steady, something that worked as hard as they did, sunup to sundown. And then came the 8N. Gray, simple, and built for everyone. It wasn't a tractor for the wealthy or the specialized. It was for the man who tilled his own soil, who fixed his own fences, who knew the value of sweat. The 8N was designed by Henry Ford himself, the same man who put America on wheels, and he meant to do the same for its farms. Under its hood sat a four-cylinder engine with around 27 horsepower. It wasn't just power that made it special, though, it was what that power could do. The 8N introduced the three-point hitch, a breakthrough that let farmers attach and control almost any implement with ease. Plowing, planting, mowing all became faster, simpler, and safer. It was the kind of innovation that turned hard labor into manageable work. Weighing just under 2,800 pounds, the 8N was agile and balanced. Its wide stance made it stable on hills, and its low gears could pull steady through mud or clay. It was gentle on fuel, easy to maintain, and forgiving for the new hand behind the wheel. You could hear it before you saw it, that deep, even hum, steady as the ticking of a clock. On early mornings in Pennsylvania or North Carolina, the sound of an 8N meant the day had begun. It was a comfort, a signal, a heartbeat of rural life. Fathers taught their sons to drive on the 8N. Daughters hauled feed with it, neighbors borrowed it, and whole towns relied on it. It wasn't just a machine, it was community in motion. When something broke, someone down the road always had a part, a tool, or a hand to lend. The 8N was built tough, but it carried grace. Its steel lines were clean, its wheels purposeful, and its design timeless. Even now, decades later, it still turns heads, not because it's rare, but because it's real. The sound of one starting up today feels like hearing the past breathe again. It sold over 500,000 units, more than any other tractor of its time. And for good reason, it gave power back to the people. It made independence possible, even for small farms fighting to stay afloat. In every way that mattered, the 8N was America, hardworking, practical, and proud. If you find one sitting behind a barn, dust-covered and gray, look closer. That's not rust you're seeing, that's memory. Every scratch, every dent, every worn tire tells the story of hands that never stopped working, and hearts that never stopped believing. That old gray Ford still sounds like America working. And when the sun dips behind the fields of the Midwest, over corn rows and hay bales, over rivers and fence lines, you can still hear them all together: the Oliver, the Farmall, the Allis-Chalmers, the John Deere, and the Ford. 5 colors, 5 voices, 1 story. A story of the land, of labor, of legacy. A story that still runs on fuel, faith, and family. If one of these tractors reminds you of home, share your story below. And if you love the sound of old engines and the memories they carry, subscribe and stay a while. Because the Heartland never forgets, and neither do we. Thanks for watching, friend.